Many of you have asked me why I believe in UFOs, in ghosts, angels and demons, and cryptids. The short answer is that I have friends and loved ones whom I adore who have had experiences that I have no reason to doubt. They have nothing to gain by telling their story and everything to lose. The long answer is that I've had experiences, and this is one of those stories. Just real quick, when I'm talking about paranormal things, and I quite literally mean things outside of the normal understanding of science, I tend to lump them into 4 categories: UFOs, or UAPs these days, cryptids, angels and demons, and ghosts. And all of the VODs in this series will fall into one of those 4 categories. As for me, here are my thoughts. First, do I believe in UFOs? Yeah. Do you not know me at all? Of course I do. Though I think most sightings can be explained by known objects, so for instance, airplanes, satellites, military maneuvers, and recently Starlink has really messed up a lot of people. But there are those, 3 to 5% of sightings that are truly unidentified, and those are the ones that really intrigue me. The universe goes on forever, right? So obviously, there are secrets out there that we do not know. Second, do I believe in cryptids? This may shock some of you, but yes. However, I'm of the school of thought that the majority of these animals are either misidentified, a new hybrid from existing animals, or possibly a Lazarus animal, meaning they were thought to have been extinct, but they're not. Unless we're talking about Bigfoot, that's a whole other thing. Third, do I believe in angels and demons? Again, yes. I grew up going to church and have always believed in angels, so by default, I believe in demons as well. Some may call it good versus evil or positive versus negative energy, and I feel like describing it in that way kind of blurs the line between that and the whole ghost realm, so I'm going to try to keep them separate in these videos. And finally, do I believe in ghosts? Yes, I do. And that's the story you've been waiting to hear. I'm not exactly sure when my interest in the paranormal started, but visiting graveyards and going on ghost tours is something that Mr. Boozy and I have always done, and we've been married for over 15 years. During our haunted excursions, I've had a few experiences, but I've always been able to explain them away. For instance, I've had the hem of my shirt tugged a couple times. And of course, I always blame Mr. Boozy first. But when I turn around and there's no one behind me, it's easy for me to imagine that my shirt just snagged on something I walked by. Another time, we saw curtains moving in an upstairs window of an abandoned house in Louisville. This wasn't as easy for me to explain, but it was possible that there was a draft in that room, or even possibly squatters. All that being said, let me bring you to the fall of 2015. Mr. Boozy and I were on an amazing trip for his 40th birthday, and this particular day we were in Victoria, British Columbia. And as we do in all new places, we had signed up for a ghost tour of the city. We arrived at the meeting place, and our guide was dressed in full regalia. This, of course, only added to the enchantment of the evening, as his enthusiasm was palpable. He quickly began telling us stories of the buildings, the people, and the dark secrets of the earliest tradesmen. It might be worth mentioning that these tours tend to take place between 12 p.m. and midnight, so the streets were fairly barren, and every voice, every footstep, and every bottle clink just put you more on edge. So we walked and walked, and he talked and talked until we arrived at the courthouse in the middle of town. And this courthouse just happened to sit on the footprint of the original gallows. And this is where we said our goodbyes. What's your point? You may be wondering. Well, my point is this. Sometimes it's better to let sleeping dogs lie. sometimes maybe you shouldn't poke at the unsettled spirits that still blanket Victoria Island. Now, our condo was a good 2 miles from the ending of this tour, so we started our long walk through the empty streets of the city. Of course, we laughed and we talked about the tour and pretended not to be completely freaked out. And then I thought to myself, did our guide do the thing? You see, at the end of every haunted tour we've ever been on, the guide would do this whole speech, right? So something like this: "Spirits who have joined us tonight, go back to where you came from. You may not follow us home," or something, something similar. And it was occurring to me that I didn't remember our guide doing this, but I just tried to put it out of my mind. And good news, pubs were still open, and we were able to have a pint or two before we got back to our condo. So sleep was not that difficult. And it wasn't until about 7 a.m. that I got up to use the facilities, and I headed to the front entry where the restroom was. And I literally stopped dead in my tracks. I didn't even turn around. I simply backed up back into the bedroom. After a couple of seconds of kind of wrapping my mind around it, I turned to Mr. Boozy and screamed at him, "That's not funny!" But of course, he had no idea what I was talking about. And I practically dragged him out of bed to the front room, and I just pointed. Every door, every cabinet was open at a 90-degree angle. It's hard for me to even talk about it right now. I seriously have chills. This included the hall closet that was a bifold door and a Murphy bed that had 2 huge magnetized doors holding it closed. And we both just stood there dumbfounded. After, I don't know how long, we both started to kind of come back to our senses. And we started to check the doors, the windows, because obviously someone had come into our place while we were sleeping. And this, scared the crap out of me, I'll be honest. But the front door was still bolted from the inside, and the patio door and windows were still latched shut. So, okay, fine. Maybe there was an earthquake. We're trying to think of other explanations. So we both kind of jumped up and down and tapped the counters to see if we could get any of the doors to wiggle open. And no, we couldn't. That's not how it works. What in the Sam Hill happened here? We were both completely at a loss. Even years later, talking about it, our oldest son suggested that maybe one of us had been sleepwalking and had opened all of the doors at a 90-degree angle without realizing it. And of course, there's no way for us to know for sure, but neither of us have ever been sleepwalkers before that or after, and it seemed like that would be a really odd time to start that habit. The truth is, we'll just never know. I know what I saw. I know what I think it was. And trust me when I say, I make sure all of our guides always do their little spiel at the end of the tours now, because I'm not taking any more chances. So friends, all I ask is that you keep an open mind. Our guests who are going to share their stories have been affected by their stories. And actually, whether or not you believe is irrelevant, because they believe. And some of these guests have had their lives forever changed by their experiences. So I guess that leaves just one question. Do you believe?